Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we want you to thrive in the ministry God has called you to. We truly believe that God's placement has purpose, and we're here for you with encouragement and tools for the journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Olson. Well, I'm always excited for the podcast. I guess I always say that when I kick it off, but it's true because I love sharing these things with you guys, and I love when I get to share about new things or what God is doing in our lives, and also when I get to connect with other people and host interviews of people from literally all over the world and hear what's going on. And here's the thing. It's fascinating and just so encouraging to me to get to see what is happening all around the world in the church, because God is doing something different and new in churches all over the world simultaneously. And it is incredible. And I just love that. And so maybe God has put that fascination in my heart so that I am excited to share it with you because he wants to use it. And I just first of all want to thank you for listening to the podcast, because there are a lot of new listeners, and it's really exciting to us because this started with, just something really organic. And honestly, probably the first listener, the only listener for a while was like my mom and my husband and my dad. And, it's just been really cool to see this community grow. And so thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. And I just thank you for those who are sharing, because that's really my heart behind it, is that it's encouraging to you so much that you think of somebody else who might be encouraged by it. And so I just want to say thank you. So I'm going to kick off a new series, and it's a series on miracles. And, miracles are something that, it's talked about, but then at the same time, it's kind of skirted, and there's some confusion around miracles. And it's something that I want to share this part of my story, part of our family story with you, because I'm hoping that it will bring some clarity and bring some encouragement to you. Because I think a lot of times the question is, well, does God still do miracles today? Or why doesn't he do miracles like he did in the Bible? And, I don't have the answer to that question because I don't know. But what I do know is what I've seen in our lives. And what I have seen is confirmation that God still does miracles. And, there's a huge element of trust, because, there's this difficulty and this disconnect, because, I have a lot of people who are close to me who have been praying for a specific miracle for a long time, and it hasn't happened yet. And that is so hard. And what if it doesn't happen this side of eternity? And that is so hard and so confusing, because the question is, why? Why in the world? And I don't know the answer to that question, and I wish that I did. And so maybe if, you're listening and you're like, well, thanks for that. You don't know either. Great. Click. All done. Goodbye. No, don't leave yet. I want to kick it off with that, because I think it's important to note that I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm just going to share my story with you and share the miracles that God has done in our lives, in hopes that it encourages you and maybe sends you on a journey of getting more clarity around how it applies to your life and how this translates to your life. But back to, the people that are close to me that have been praying for miracles for a long time and they haven't happened yet. What God has just planted in my heart is a strong trust of his timing. And I don't like it and I don't understand it, but that's the only thing that makes any sense, because look, God is good. It's written all over his word, right? He is faithful. He never leaves us. He never changes, and he wants what is best for us. It's written all over the Bible. He always cares for us. And he always has our best interest in mind, but we don't know his timing. I've read this book called Anonymous, and it talks about the hidden years of Jesus. And, when Jesus was led into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, and he went without, food, and he was tempted by the tempter, and he did not give in to that temptation. Okay, so let's just take a bird's eye perspective for a moment. And this was something that the author Alicia Britt Nicole Alicia Britt Cole wrote in the book Anonymous. Side note, Britt Nicole, great musician as well. Anyway, but it's something that the author wrote in this book, and it was just an aha perspective for me. But she said, look, what if Jesus had given into that temptation? It would have changed the trajectory of life as we know it. It would have altered history in a way that we cannot even fathom, right? But Jesus knew in that moment, his reaction and the fact that he was not going to give in to that temptation was going to change and alter history as we know it. And so he knew that just, the timing was everything. And he had to say no, of course, in those moments of being tempted, because he knew what it meant in the future. And so what if God's timing is all connected like that? And I say what if with a smile on my face, because of course it is. So for our own lives, his timing is everything. And what if the miracle manifesting itself right now would alter the trajectory of your life in a way that, he didn't intend? For example, maybe the miracle is waiting because your miracle is also going to change somebody else's life. And the timing is dependent on that. We just don't know. And it doesn't make it easy. It's, you might be thinking, well, that's easy for you to say. You're not in my situation. And you're right. I'm not. And I'm not belittling your situation. I'm not downplaying it. All I'm saying is what I've learned in my life is that I have to have a complete trust and dependency on his timing, because I don't know why he is doing things this way, but I know that he's good. I know that he's constant. I know that he's sovereign. I know that he's with us. And I know all of these truths. And so I know that his timing is perfect. So for us in our lives, I want to share about a very specific miracle that happened in our lives. And, it's something that honestly has really changed our lives, because it's a monument, to be honest with you, that we look back on and we are just still like, I can't fathom how or why or, anything. And it's just such a beautiful thing. And so, back when we started Overflow Worship in 2014, it was something that God had put on my heart, and it was something that I knew I needed to do. I knew that all the things God had put in place prior to that time were leading up to these moments. And Overflow Worship existed long before 2014, but I just didn't know it. I didn't have a formal name for it. I was training people. I was doing workshops. I was leading worship, doing all these things. But in 2014, God showed me, you know what? You're going to start a conference, and you're going to call all the people that you have rubbed shoulders with and all the leaders that you know are facing challenges, and you're going to invite them to come. And then you're going to bring in other speakers and worship leaders to come and pour into them. And, my response was like, okay, but I don't know how to do that. I have no idea what I'm doing or how to do that. So I could have walked away, right? I could have said, not yet. I'm not ready. At that point I was pregnant with our second and due in 2014 in November. And so it was kind of like, this is horrible timing. I don't know. I think I should just wait. But there was just something in me that couldn't shake it. And there were people around me saying, yeah, you need to, you should do this, and just encouraging me and holding me up. And so we went for it. And here's the thing. At that point in our lives, we were not in a financial position to have the money to pay for all of this out of pocket. But we had to, because, we're starting a new ministry. We're sowing into this, trying to figure this out. And so, I did the best that I could to spread the word. And there was a radio station in Minnesota, Praise Live, who just, I am so grateful and blessed by them. You guys, their heart for ministry and evangelism and worship is absolutely incredible. And they just jumped on board and said, yeah, we love what you're doing. We want to be a part of it. And so they helped spread the word, and they still are one of our most treasured partners and friends. And, I just was, doing everything that I knew to do to spread the word, to do the planning, to bring in the speakers and the people. And it was really pretty incredible, all the people that God had put in my path up to that point that I was able to call. But I tell you what, I was a ball of anxiety for all of those months. I don't know why, but just everything made me nervous. And I think I was just scared of screwing it up. And I was so scared about the financial piece of it because I didn't know how we were going to pay for it. I was honestly like, putting everything on credit cards, and we never do that. We actually, are firm believers in, paying off our credit cards every month and, all of that. So we just, that's what we have always done, and that's our choice, and that's what works for our family. But it was one of those things where it was a leap of faith, and we felt like, okay, this is what we need to do. And so there wasn't money to pay for it. And I just kept believing, believed so strongly that there was going to be a room full for the Friday night of worship. So the conference, if you've never been, you've never heard of it, the Overflow Worship Conference is a 2-day event. We do it every year. 2021 is going to be the 8th conference. And so it was 2 days. It still is 2 days. And Friday kicks off with a night of worship that's open to the public, and Saturday is all the sessions. So I was like, Lord, I believe you, and I receive that there will be a full house on Friday night for the public night of worship. And in that facility, it's like 1,000 people. And then for Saturday, I was like, Lord, I believe that there will be, 250 people for the conference. Okay. So that's what I was praying for. And I was just, fasting and praying and doing all the things that I knew to do and stepping out in faith. And there were so many little miracles, well, they were big to me, that God did throughout that time, where I would ask for a specific confirmation. Like, Lord, if this is what you want me to be doing, please show me by this. And I know that I don't know that was a great way to go about it. Like, if this, then this, or if this is right, do this. But at that point, I think God was really working in my heart to say, yep, I want you to step out. So I'm going to answer that prayer. And so all of these little things. And I was so confident, so confident that, those prayers were going to be answered the way that I was praying them. 1,000 people on Friday night, 250 people on Saturday for the sessions. And, as we continued to get closer, there was a point where I was talking with the caterer. So I'm like, okay, we're going to feed them lunch on Saturday. And so we need to get food for everybody. And so I'm talking with the caterer, and he's telling me, this is how much it's going to cost for every lunch. And so we got all that figured out. Well, it comes time for the final catering counts, and we're 2 weeks out. So the first conference was actually in the end of July. We do them in the second weekend of October now every year, but the first one was in July. And so we're 2 weeks out from the conference, and the caterer calls me, and he's like, I need a final head count. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, let me, gather all the information and let me get back to you. So I got off the phone, and I said to my husband, I was like, all right, so I believe so strongly that we are going to have 250 people to feed. And I think we should buy 250 lunches, but I'm terrified because we only have 50 people registered. 50. Okay. And at that point, I got to tell you, I'm feeling like an utter failure, right? Like, I was working as hard as I possibly could and doing everything that I knew to do. And I'm like, I know more than 50 worship leaders. Like, why aren't people coming to this thing? That's just me and my own insecurities and worries and struggles. And so I just was like, I don't know what to do, because what if we don't have that many people? How am I going to pay for this? Because, 250 lunches was like a lot of money, right? And, they were $5 a piece or whatever. And so I was just like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And my husband, he's always such an encouragement to me. And he just looked at me and he said, well, when you get to the other side of this, what's the story that you want to tell? And every single time I tell this, I get emotional. And it's like I've gotten pretty good at holding it back, but it still just gets me every time. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, do you want to say that you played it safe and you only bought, the lunches that you needed? Or do you want to say that you swung for the fences and did everything you knew to do, and the rest isn't your department? It's not up to you. And I kind of just laughed and did the whole shrug my shoulders thing, fine, you're right. I'm going to swing for the fences. And it was a pivotal moment because I was like, okay, I'm going to take this leap of faith and we're going to do this because I believe so strongly that this is what's going to happen. And so we kept praying. I, ordered the lunches and all the things. And so 2 weeks comes by and, after the Friday night of worship, we had such a sweet night, but there was not 1,000 people in the room. There was maybe 150 people in the room. And we had such a sweet night of worship. And then, Friday night afterwards rolls around and I am still convinced that there are going to be 250 people on Saturday, even though they weren't registered. We had 60 people registered. So, okay, there's going to be 190 people that are going to show up at the door to buy tickets on Saturday. And I was just like, no, God can do that. He can do it. And I was still wrestling though internally, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm going to interrupt today's topic for just a moment to tell you about overflowresource.com. This is a subscription-based website that we have just launched. And it was created to serve the local church worship team. Most churches serve congregations of 500 or less. And so we created this community with that in mind. You're going to find training videos on topics curated for the local church context, articles, chord charts, stems, tutorials, and a lot more. So if you would like to learn more and join for only $20 for an entire year, you can visit overflowresource.com. So Saturday comes and you know what? There were not 190 people that showed up at the door. It was the 60 that had registered. And you know what though? Before I, move on to the rest of the story, that looking back now was exactly what needed to happen and exactly what I needed and exactly what I could handle. I honestly, at that point, don't think that I could have handled that number of people. Now, yes, we do fill up the sanctuary and we do have, between 250 and 350 people for the conference. And we keep it actually at that point so it stays intimate and it stays a little bit more just smaller class sizes so that you can ask questions and interact and all of that. And we can do that now, but 8 years ago, I couldn't have handled that. And God knew that. But he was taking me on a faith journey because he was stretching my prayer life and he was stretching my faith to step out, even though I didn't know the outcome, and surrendering the fact that, even if it doesn't happen, that's not up to me because I can stand on the other side of this and say, I did everything I could. I did everything I knew to do and everything you asked me to, God, and I just surrender the rest to you and I trust you. I trust what you're doing. And, we got to Saturday and it was beautiful. It was such a sweet time and we had so much fun. So many people were encouraged and we learned a lot and we grew and it was beautiful. And I knew at that point, when we got through that day, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is what I'm supposed to step into. And that was the beginning of the trajectory of, the rest of my life and me stepping into the calling that God had placed on my life. And so anyway, so we're getting to lunchtime and, everybody is eating and some of the teenage boys ate more because I was like, well, we've got, a lot of lunches here. And we had all these lunches left over, right? Like 190 lunches left over. And I'm just like, what are we going to do with all this food? And I was starting to just go to some of the other leaders who I had brought in and some of the pastoral leaders of the church that was hosting the event and just talking to them about it. And all of a sudden I get a phone call. So one of the leaders that was at the conference reached out to the pastor of their Spanish ministry. So this church has an English service and a Spanish service. And so reached out to the leader of their Spanish service and said, hey, I know that you're doing a big outreach event tomorrow. Would you have use for these lunches? And so my phone rings and it's the leader of the Spanish ministry. And he was just like floored. He was like, I would be so blessed to be able to use these lunches, and of course offered to make a donation for the lunches, but the Holy Spirit spoke so clearly to me that we needed to donate them. We need to give them, not sell them, but give them. And so we were able to provide food for 250 people. It just wasn't the 250 people that I thought it was going to be. And I believe, looking back on that God used me and the time of prayer and fasting and believing and trusting in the leaps of faith that I took on that journey. He used me to be a part and just be a pass through to somebody else's miracle, because that was such a blessing to that ministry. And they were able to do an outreach event and provide food for people because of me buying too many lunches and not being able to use them. And it was just like, that was such a monumental part of our journey, because we realized that God is working miracles all the time, but it's not always exactly the way that we want them to be, or we prayed for them to be, or thought that they would be. But what if I'm just a pass through? What if I'm just a part of somebody else's miracle? And then maybe someday someone else will be a part of mine. And there are definitely times where God has directly answered our prayer with a tangible physical miracle that is undeniable. And that story is coming next time. But I wanted to kick off with this one because it's such a huge part of the Overflow Worship story and how it all began. And God has used that to impact other people. I have had so many people come to me who were at that first conference and knew what was happening, who said it was a catalyst in their faith. And it was a growth opportunity for them to see that story unfold and to see the asked for miracle, the one that I prayed for, to see it not happen, but to see it play out even better. And isn't that how God works? He multiplies. He doesn't just think one dimensional. And so he just wanted to stretch and expand my faith and use it to bless somebody else too. And you know what? You may be wondering, like, well, how did you pay for those lunches? Well, I just had to go on a payment plan and pay it off. And so that to me kind of felt a little bit in my flesh, like, really? But it didn't matter, because this story has changed my life. And God provided, we paid it off, and it was fine. And all of that worry and fear and just anxiety about what are we going to do? How are we going to pay for this? God was like, well, you're gonna. It's just, you're going to work with people who are going to give you grace, and you're going to make it work. And we did. And, I'm grateful for it. And so that piece of the story was just so monumental. And I wanted to share it with you because I believe that there are people out there who are listening, or people that you need to share this story with, you need to share this podcast with, who need to hear this story because they're walking through a valley or walking through a season where they're believing for a miracle. And I just want to encourage you to trust God's timing and trust his answer, because we don't know what that's going to do to affect somebody else. It might not be a one-dimensional answer. It could be an unlimited, multi-dimensional, multifaceted effect that your prayers are going to have, not only on your life, but on somebody else's. So be encouraged, friends. God is working. He still does miracles. And I'm going to close with Psalm 96, from the Passion Translation as we thank God for the miracles he's doing. Go ahead, sing your new song to the Lord. Let everyone in every language sing him a new song. Don't stop. Keep on singing. Make his name famous. Tell everyone every day how wonderful he is. Give them the good news of our great Savior. Take the message of his glory and miracles to every nation. Tell them about all the amazing things he has done. For the Lord's greatness is beyond description, and he deserves all the praise that comes to him. He is our King God, and it's right to be in holy awe of him. And then I'm going to jump to verses 11 and 12 of that same chapter that says, let the skies sing for joy. Let the earth join in the chorus. Let oceans thunder and fields echo this ecstatic praise until every swaying tree of every forest joins in, lifting up their song of joyous praise to him. Just remember that. He is deserving of all the praise. And let's take the message of his glory and miracles and tell everyone about what he's doing in our lives. And just remember, if you are in a season where you're believing and praying for a miracle, trust his timing. Keep your head up. Keep praying and believing, and know that his answer may not be what you expected or may not be what you asked for, but I guarantee you it's exactly what you need.
Thank you for listening to the Overflow Worship Podcast. To stay up to date, please subscribe for the latest episodes and information. To learn more about the ministry of Overflow, visit overflowworship.com. If you have questions or prayer requests, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us at info@overflowworship.com.